Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun.Deals. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the Trijicon TA31, but perhaps the most unique version of it, that being the green reticled ACSS version, which is discontinued and you can't really find it anymore, making this a little bit rare and probably the best version of this optic. But before we get into that, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, and comment your favorite ACOG in the comments down below. Now, full disclosure, both the optic and the old school Noveske upper that it is sitting on was sent to me by a kind viewer of the channel. I don't have any relationship with Noveske or with Trijicon, so keep that in mind going forward. The TA31 is probably the optic when you think of an ACOG, because of course there are at least a half dozen different variants of the ACOG, and then at least a half dozen different variants of each of those, if not more, with color combos and reticle combos, meaning that there's probably actually somewhere around 100 different variants of the ACOG, but this one here specifically is the 4X model with the super short eye relief, but in this case the ultra cool reticle. Getting some basics out of the way, the TA31 is a forged aluminum body, which helps it with its legendary durability, 32mm objective, 4x magnification, giving us a 8mm exit pupil, meaning that the eye box is okay even though your eye has to be touching the glass. The trade-off for that short eye relief is about 37 feet field of view at 100 yards at 4x magnification, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, another strong point of the TA31 is its weight, coming in at about 10 ounces with the stock mount, or a little bit less than that with the LaRue RCO that we see here. Of course, we have the iconic fiber wire that runs the entire length of the body to feed light into the reticle, meaning that this is powered both by the fiber optic and by a tritium insert that, by this point in time, is almost certainly dead, or at least halfway there. Now, this one is, of course, in green, which will remind the Marines using it of their favorite flavor of crayon. In terms of controls, we have capped windage and elevation, and that is it. No rear diopter, no more moving parts. Very, very simple, very rugged, and very problematic for a certain sect of individuals. Unfortunately, I am one of them. In the back, we also have our RMR mounting plate for your piggyback red dot. It is a lot further back than you would like. Some of the other models, the battery models, have a much more optimized location, being about halfway up the body. When it comes to usability, we've already mentioned it, but the eye relief is very, very short, on the short side of 2 inches in fact. So from a low prone position, if your head is angled forward, well, that ACOG might just give you a little forehead kiss. Even with that semi-forgiving eye box, because of that ultra-short eye relief, you need to be very aware of that for whatever system you put it on, whether that's an A1, an A2 stock, something like that, or a adjustable stock. You're going to change the way that you hold the rifle to deal with that very short eye relief, or uncomfortably crane your neck all the way forward. Despite the optical design being older than I am, fortunately that huge field of view also gives you a huge field of view of good glass. So you're not just looking through a lot of mediocre glass, but you actually have decent glass, good quality light transmission, the colors are good, edge-to-edge clarity is decent, the image itself is relatively flat and distortion-free, so the trade-off for getting very close to it is you get a lot of really good-looking glass. Getting into what separates this ACOG from basically all others on the market is the reticle, the unfortunately discontinued ACSS version in, of course, green. Now, going through the reticle, you of course have your ACSS chevron, because ACSS will shove a chevron inside of anything, whether you like it or not. Around that, we have our outer horseshoe for quick target acquisition, and you can use that for some ranging as well. And underneath that, we have our BDC. One note about the center area is that it is illuminated by the green fiber optic wire, and in full direct sunlight, it gets a little bit too bright and bloomy for my taste, which is why you will commonly see people use electrical tape or other Getalutions for reducing that problematic brightness. Underneath the illuminated reticle, we have our BDC holds in 100-yard increments all the way out to 800 yards. Now, the center stadia lines can also be used as shoulder ranging at the appropriate distance, meaning that you simply line up the shoulders and then pull the trigger. Not only is there ranging within the center stadia line, but then we also have 10-mile-an-hour wind holds, and to either side of our illuminated section, we also have moving holds for targets at varying distances. On the right-hand side of the optic, we also have a dedicated ranging bracket, which has height and width auto ranging so that you can align targets in multiple ways. Now, the reason why the ACSS reticle is the most complex, but also probably the best for the ACOG lineup, is just that. It gives you the most options. It gives you wind holds. It gives you moving holds. It has a lot of options for ranging if you are somebody who is able to take advantage of those features. For me personally, a lot of the other ACOG options out there that don't have the wind holds or don't have all of the ranging features are a little less interesting, which is why these rare boys can go for a lot of money on the secondhand market. If you're already spending somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200 on your Trijicon ACOG, well, then you're probably going to want to get the most performance out of it and the most usability out of it, and that is, in this case, the ACSS version. When it comes to performance of the optic, while I acknowledge that the usability is interesting with that very short eye relief, the glass is very good, the reticle is very competent, so I like those aspects of it. However, unfortunately, as we mentioned earlier, this optic has an issue, or more correctly, I have an issue where my eyes do not like the reticle in this, so it's almost always a little bit blurry and blown out, and there is no diopter to adjust the reticle to your eyes like there are on a lot more modern designs. So while this might work for most of the population, unfortunately, it just doesn't work for me. So while I'm a little dour on that aspect of its performance, I'm not actually holding that against it because I do recognize that it does a good job. I was still able to engage targets quickly and accurately up close, and this is actually one of those areas where that horseshoe helps me out personally, because instead of looking for a blurry little blob, I actually have just a horseshoe I can just throw on the target, as long as there's not like a no-shoot or something like that, and get an acceptable hit. Out at distance, I recognize that there is a fine chevron point on paper, but in reality it doesn't exist with my vision. So at distances, when you're trying to be very precise and use the actual tip of the chevron, it's a little bit more complicated, unfortunately. Talking about the mount briefly, I believe these do ship with the older TA51, the thumb screw style mount. I don't know if that's the right number, but the LaRue mount that we have here is quite nice. It's a little bit less bulky, it's a little lighter, and it is QD if you're somebody who is into that sort of thing, but it will allow me to put it on multiple different rifles. So while I recognize that the ACOG is super durable, the glass is pretty good for the price point, and I think that's kind of what you're buying it for. Unfortunately, this one specifically does not look good to my eyes, whereas the TA11 did look good to my eyes, and I'm not really sure if that's an issue with all TA31s or just this one in particular. So there's a lot of things that I like about it. I think it's very lightweight, gives you a lot of performance for the size, good durability, so on and so forth. You can mount your favorite red dot in the back to give you a little bit more in the way of options, and I think that it does add a lot of capability to the standard rifle, certainly far and above better performance than what the average soldier could get from iron sights, which is why units equipped with ACOGs had their hit percentage go up so precipitously versus those with just iron sights, because it is a novel, durable aiming solution that doesn't really sacrifice much in the way of durability. But with all that out of the way, gentlemen, let me know what you think of the TA31 in the comments down below, specifically the ACSS versions, or if you think there's actually a better version of the TA31. But with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.